So we're going to go through a little bit of the parts of the brain. The information about the brain and the research that we have is very ample and very wide. So we're going to try to make it brief so that we understand the important parts of stimulating the brain through experience and through the activities that we do in our programs to let kids develop the abilities and the competences that they will need as they grow up and become grown-ups, so that their brains have all this information and they have it accessible to be able to use it whenever they need it in their futures. So let's start by understanding a little bit what entrepreneurship is. We define entrepreneurship as starting something. Entrepreneurship is looking for opportunities and taking advantage of them, being able to see what people or what resources are being needed in the outside world and doing something about it. Entrepreneurship is a combination of creative act with an effective action. It involves three elements: discovery of an opportunity, design of the product, the service, of the process that it satisfies, and the detected need in a way that allows a benefit to be obtained, and the implementation of the project to turn it into results. Entrepreneurship is an attitude, a quality that makes us challenge ourselves and grow as people, as humans. Humans are always evolving and growing, and we know by now that the brain has the ability, that what neuroscientists call neuroplasticity, which is the ability to adapt and to grow all through life. Up to the day that we die, our brains are adapting and they are growing if giving the proper stimulation. Sorry. So this is our brain, or seen by the side, and the different parts of the brain. We know now that we need our whole brain for things to happen and to be able to function properly. So we have the different parts of the brain have different areas that help us do the things we do on a daily basis and that help us grow. And the brain develops from the back to the front. That's the way the brain develops from childhood, from infancy, through the young adult process, through adolescence, and as grown-ups. So the frontal lobe is the part where we have the most differentiated brain parts from the rest of the animal kingdom. So we have at the brainstem, and it's responsible for the breathing, body temperature, the digestion, and the alertness or sleep. This is where the process of being alert and awake during the day and the sleep during the night, this is where it happens, and it makes it integrate with the rest of the brain. In the very, very back, we have the cerebellum. The cerebellum is the smallest part of the brain, but it's where the most quantity of neurons are allocated. This is where more neurological action happens. We have the occipital lobe, which is responsible for vision and color perception. We have the parietal lobe, which is responsible for knowing right from left, or both hemispheres and both sides of our body, sensations, reading, and body orientation. The blue part is the temporal lobe, understanding language, behavior, memory, and hearing. And the frontal lobe, which is the latest to develop, is where we will find problem solving, emotional traits, reasoning or judgment, speaking, and voluntary motor activity. So we're going to go through a little bit of to see how the entrepreneurial process stimulates the different parts of the brain to help us develop a set of competences that are the set of competences related to entrepreneurship and to success in life. Needless to say, the brain is only 2% of the body mass, but it consumes 25% of the body energy that we have at our disposal. So it's the highest consuming energy organ in the human body. We don't see it, but this is where all the activity that helps us be alive and be entrepreneurs and have activities and have social relations, this is where it all happens. So that's why it's so important to have in mind that everything we do in life is stimulating our brains. What's a job competence? It's a set of knowledge and skills and the ability to put them into operation in order to perform successfully in a given work activity. And it has two parts. The theoretical knowledge, the things that we learn when we go to school or when we take a class, and the ability to put this knowledge into practice, to use it. This is how a competence is developed, but it's developed through time, through stimuli, through experience. We differentiate three types of competencies. We have instrumental competencies, we have interpersonal competencies, and systemic competencies. The instrumental competencies are those that help the individual integrate into their work environment. Here we have the cognitive skills, methodological capabilities, and technical skills. In interpersonal competencies, these are the ones that refer to the process of social interaction, relationship of the individual to the company. Sorry, I repeated it there twice. That's why it's so important. And the systemic competencies are the integration of cognitive abilities, skills, and practices, and the combination of understanding, sensitivity, and knowledge. We're gonna go through each one of these types of competencies, and we're gonna separate them. We're gonna see first the instrumental competencies, which are perseverance, responsibility, persuasion, decision-making, troubleshooting, organizational skills, the ability to plan, oral and written communication, and obviously creativity and innovation. Perseverance is what makes us do the things that we want to do, to have a clear objective and to work to get it. It's the road to success. It's always full of failures and obstacles that we need to overcome. The indicator of success in our professional lives is not what we get when we reach the top, but what we become on the way to it. Failure is the engine that leads us to climb even higher. The more we dare to do new things, the more experience we will gain. The important thing is to be willing to learn from each experience. So failure and perseverance are linked hand by hand because the way we look at failure as an opportunity to learn, it is what leads us to be able to persevere in the goals that we want to achieve. Researchers at Stanford University published a paper in the journal Neuron where they identify the anterior cingulate cortex located approximately 5 centimeters behind the nose, right back here, as the area responsible or the one that makes people have the strong will to persevere in the face of obstacles. So we have a little picture. We can see where the anterior cingulate cortex is located in the brain structure. And this area turns on when self-control is required. So it's something that we are continuously stimulating when working through difficult or different challenges. The human brain is made up of neurons. Neurons are connected to each other by synapses. Neurons don't touch each other, but the energy between them is what's called a synapse. Thanks to synapses, the information is exchanged between neurons, and with each new learning, there is a new neural connection. When this learning is reinforced, the connection between neurons is strengthened. If learning is not reinforced, the connection weakens to the point of disappearing, and what has been learned is forgotten. This particular renewing of neural connection happens in adolescence. This is why adolescents are always tired and that they don't want to do a lot of things. And it's because this is happening in the brain. It's when the neurons are being relocated and the synapses are being revised by the brain itself to know which connections are no longer needed and they are discarded. This doesn't mean that the neurons die, that synapses, the connections are no longer used. And this is because, as I told you before, it's so high energy consuming that it needs to be more effective in the processes that it's focused on. So through entrepreneurship, we keep making sure that these synapses keep going on to help stimulate and keep provoking the learning to be installed in order to be a resource, to be pulled from the memory and from the brain records to be used in the future. This is why it's so important and why competencies are developed through time, because we need to keep using them so that this information is not lost and we don't forget how to do things or how to engage in different activities. Responsibility. Responsibility is a basic human ability. And I like to decompose the word into responsibility, the ability to respond to stimuli. A person who is characterized by this responsibility is one who has the virtue not only of making a series of decisions consciously, but also of assuming the consequences of those decisions and of answering for them to whoever corresponds at all times. Accountability is one of the pillars of success. And Winston Churchill told us the price of greatness is responsibility. And it's located in the prefrontal cortex. It's something that we learn through time, and we encourage children to embrace it because responsibility is the basis of all entrepreneurship. And we have persuasion. Persuasion is to make the customer or the person we're interacting with to buy off their own free will. We are not imposing on them. We're letting them know, it's showing them the elements that they need, the information that they need to have so that they can make their own decisions on their own. When negotiating, persuasion becomes indispensable. We have to put on the negotiation table the elements that the customer needs to make the purchase decision. Persuasion is an art that takes practice. You need to observe to what makes people make the decisions they do. And this is linked to another competence we're going to be seeing later on in the presentation. This is a very interesting development in brain understanding. Daniel Kahneman, he's a psychologist and a Nobel Prize for economics and not for psychology. He proposed in his investigations that the brain is integrated by two systems, system 1 and system 2. Why system 1 and system 2? Just to make it simple and to help us remember. System 1 is our automatic system. It's fast, it's emotional, and it's intuitive. Through system 1, we associate new information with existing patterns rather than creating new patterns for each new experience we have. We jump to conclusions from first impressions. And there's a saying that what fires together wires together. So through experiences in life is how system 1 is formed and integrated, because it's always locking into the information of the experiences we're having, and it's making them, because it's energy efficient, making the neural pathways so that we know how to respond to similar stimuli. So this is, when people say this is just how I am, this is system 1. But there's system 2, which is slow, it's rational, and it's logical. System 2 is the way we process new information and the way we use the information stored in system 1 to offer different responses. System 2 represents critical thinking. Decisions are made analytically. We need more information about the situation, about the stimuli, about the environment, and about ourselves. This by itself, it's a whole very big set of information and of research of how the brain integrates new information. So through entrepreneurship, we are always stimulating system 2 because we're making children think. We're giving them challenges that they need to solve in different ways because they have never been exposed to this kind of information. So being an entrepreneur and using the creative and the innovative competences that are developed through entrepreneurial programs is what helps us strengthen system 2. System 2 is a voluntary system that we engage with consciously. We choose to engage in system 2. System one is our automatic response. This is how we go, this is how we react, this is how we protect ourselves from risk. We're going to see risk a little bit further on in the presentation. But system two is what helps us grow and evolve and develop the competencies, because we choose to bring them into use with every new challenge that we are faced on a daily basis. So then we engage with self-esteem. Self-esteem is self-love. It's the way we see ourselves based on our own perceptions of our story, of what system one has stored for us. What you think you are, that's what you are. That's system one. What we reflect to the world is based on our own self-perception, how we see ourselves, how we think others see ourselves, see us. So self-esteem can be stimulated and it can be reinforced through achieving, through achieving our goals, to setting up our own challenges and working through them. And this stimulates system two. And the limbic system is responsible for generating our emotions, including the emotion and affection we feel toward ourselves. So this is where self-esteem is being developed. So we need to stimulate the limbic system. And how do we do that? By going through the response in system one and giving it the analytical view in system two, analyzing and questioning it. And that's why it's interesting for me what Natalia just told us in her conference, because for me, artificial intelligence is making us use less of our limbic system, because the information is in the collective and we're not stimulating our brain to provide the information from within ourselves. We're just hanging on our knowledge from the collective knowledge. And there's a lot of information and it can be very useful, but we need to use it as a resource and not as a substitute for our brain processes, for our thinking. The relationship between the hippocampus and self-esteem is so direct that it has even been observed that people with negative view of themselves have a smaller size of this brain structure. So we need to put ourselves in front of a mirror and reinforce self-esteem to stimulate the limbic system and make it a strong one, because we need to be able to engage from a healthy place for ourselves with others if we want to be successful in life. And this is very important from a very young age, because children learn from what they are told that they are. And this is the way that we tag children and that we tell them what they can and can't do. The brain will process the information they can do and set it up as system one and have the belief that this is who I am and this is what I'm capable of and what I'm not capable of. So we need to stimulate them enough to let them have the evidence to understand that yes, they can. So through achieving their goals and through perseverance, this is how we take the kids to reinforce their limbic system and to reinforce their self-esteem. And a child with strong self-esteem is more likely to go on and persecute their own goals and to develop the grit necessary to achieve what they set their minds to. Decision making, this is a process, and it's a learned process from system one. The way that things have worked in the past, but we need to put them through the filter of system two to make sure that we're taking all the information needed to make sure that the decision-making process and the choice that we are making is the right one. It's also allocated in the prefrontal cortex. So a decision is a resolution, the determination that is made regarding something. And decision-making is the process that consists of making a choice between several different alternatives. Troubleshooting. When we need to solve a problem is an obstacle or an inconvenience that prevents or hinders the accomplishment or attainment of a thing, a person or a thing that possess a difficulty or inconvenience to solve. The problem-solving process, it encompasses those tasks that require relatively complex reasoning processes and not a simple associative or routine activity. The problem-solving process is allocated in system 2 because we need more and new information. We cannot only stand by what system 1 will make us as a reaction. We need to develop a response. To solve a problem, the subject must set in motion reasoning process, system 2. The organization of work, it's also located in the prefrontal cortex. An entrepreneur must organize himself. Organizing staff work is part of running a business, and the elements of work organization are the work itself. These are the functions to be fulfilled, divided into clearly defined tasks. The staff, the people, who does what, based on skills and experience. And the workplace, the place and the atmosphere, the environment where all this is always happening. And organization is one of the executive skills of the 11 executive skills that are developed in the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the latest part of the brain to develop, and it develops in women between ages of 23 and 25, and in men between ages of 25 and 27. So it's fully integrated and developed way beyond what we call adulthood, after the teenage years. So we don't have an adult brain when we're 19. We have an adult brain at around 25, depending on gender. Planning is also one of the executive skills. It's also allocated in the prefrontal cortex, and it's a process of deciding what actions need to be taken in the future. Generally, the planning process consists of considering the different alternatives in the course of actions and deciding which of them is the best. It's the ability to think about the future, to mentally anticipate something. And through this mental process, we can choose the actions that are required to achieve the goals we have planned. And strategic planning is the process by which decision makers obtain processes and analysis pertinent information, both internal and external, in order to evaluate the current situation, as well as their level of competitiveness, in order to anticipate and decide on the future of the situation directed. A plan is to prepare for future action. It's looking forward, it's having a vision. And the strategy is the way we direct our actions to an end. It must be goal-oriented. So it's all related in how the brain functions, because we need to use the information that we already have stored and the neural pathways that we already having used, and make new and different pathways. And this stimulates the brain, and it stimulates the brain growth and the brain development and the development of the different competencies that we are going to need in the future to be integrated grown-ups. Communication is a basic human skill. Humans need to communicate. All living things communicate, and we can see that in microorganisms through all the processes. And communication is a process by which information, feelings, thoughts, and anything else that can be conveyed is transmitted. Our neurological receptors pick up the following emotional nuances in a conversation: tone of voice, selected words, posture, details, gestures, and rhythms. And there are very different types of communication. We have verbal and nonverbal communication. Verbal communication is about only 7% of the whole communication process. The rest of the communication process involves gestures, involves eye movements, involves the interpretation of words, and the relationship, the chemistry between the speakers, the persons involved in the communication process and the transmission of the message. Our ability to use language is in two areas of the left hemisphere of the brain. The Broca's area on the frontal lobe is where speech production and articulation, reading, and graphonological conversion are allocated. The Vernix area in the temporal lobe is where we find comprehension, deciphers the alphabet, and the Broca's area is, sorry, I repeated that, it's speech production. So we need different areas of the brain to be able to use communication and to communicate accordingly with other human beings and with other living beings. When we talk about the stimulation of the brain, what we want is to have both hemispheres communicate. They communicate through the callus callosum, it's the central part of the brain. Here's where creativity comes in. It's our brain's ability to do new things. Creativity is a system to ability, because we need to choose and we need to see the information and we need to be able to understand how it works for us. To be creative is to have an original thought, that is to come up with many different things, many different ways to do something. We can come up with new ideas, or we can associate ideas that are already existing to generate a new one. We are all born as creative beings, but we have to stimulate our own creativity so that it grows and helps us solve problems and create new things. To develop creativity, the most important thing is to take care of our diet, sleep well, and observe everything around us, because the best ideas come suddenly when we are calm and focused on what is happening around us. To be creative is to be connected with our creative power. And this is moving out of the automatic system one response and consciously choosing to be in system two, stimulating new activities and different challenges. According to a recent survey of more than 1,500 CEOs from 33 industries around the world, CEOs believe that successfully navigating an increasing complex world will require creativity more than any other skill. Entrepreneurs use creativity as the basis of all their projects. Creativity and curiosity are the doors to new things. And if we don't let children use curiosity and creativity to create, we are blocking them. And this is what's happening with artificial intelligence, because we think that all the answers are already allocated somewhere on the cloud. And yes, maybe they are, but if we go there as our only resource to find the information, we stop using our curiosity and our own creative processes to develop and to grow as a human being. Creativity is related to several cognitive functions as memory, attention, and executive functions. And there are different areas of the brain involved in creativity: the prefrontal cortex for divergent thinking, fluency, and flexibility of thought. The parietal area, it's the connection between the brain's mental representations and comprehension. It's a sensory integrator. When we see an object and we are able to name it, to relate it, to assign a color, to assign a flavor, this is what, when we join together what we have stored in memory with what we're using in attention, and the executive functions helps us use it for a project, a business, a negotiation, in communication, in many areas of human interaction. The temporal lobes for originality, the upper left time twist for creative idea generation. This is the area that we need to stimulate constantly to always be connected with creativity. And the limbic system, because it manages psychological responses to emotional stimuli. Innovation goes hand in hand with creativity. As entrepreneurs, it's not enough for us to be creative. We have to be innovative. That is, implement or put our ideas into operation, find ways to do things, not only new things, but things that have been done in the past, and make them in a different way. Our brain has two hemispheres, the right and the left. The right hemisphere is responsible for us being creative, and the left hemisphere is responsible for logical and rational thinking. This doesn't mean that if we have a brain lesion and we hurt our brains in some way, we hurt our left hemisphere, it won't work. No. The brain has the ability as well to regenerate itself. And we need both sides of the brain in order for us to function properly. So that's why we need to integrate and be lateral about all the stimuli that we give into the brain. By innovating, we are working at the same time with the two hemispheres of the brain. With the right, we create, and with the left, we make our ideas become a reality. We make them work. Human beings create mental patterns derived from experiences, system one. Innovation is the result of the intersection of previously unrelated neural patterns, system two. So this is the importance of getting to know how the brain is being stimulated when we're working with children, because we're constantly sending information from one side of the brain to the other. And we need to make them agile at their system two development, because system one will always be there, but system two is always being created. And through system one, we integrate more information into system two. And from system two, we are constantly integrating information into system one. So this makes system one have more information, have more resources, and be more ample in the resources and the tools that it has to engage in daily human activities. Boredom. This is the kickoff and the starting point of entrepreneurship. Boredom is a feeling of annoyance caused by a lack of fun or interest in something. And boredom is the door to curiosity, and it's the door to creativity. Why? Because when we are bored, we start imagining things. The challenge we have now as grown-ups, as teachers, as academic institutions, is to make sure that children learn from boredom to continue being curious and to continue developing creativity. If we don't let children get bored, we are annulling the capacity of the human species to create. And we are holding on to artificial intelligence as the source of all information and all resources. So we need to stop that and to distance ourselves a little bit from that and make sure that we know how to use artificial intelligence. Well, my generation, we used encyclopedias, but printed encyclopedias. So you had to go to the index and find the whatever you were investigating or researching, and then go to the book that it sent you to, and then you had to read and you had to understand the information and maybe look for other sources of information. Children nowadays have the information at a pinch in a digital device. They never get bored. And boredom is linked as well to immediate the recompense system. We're going to see it a little bit there. We are not being able to not have a reward immediately. And we need to hold on to that. Children and grown-ups need to be bored to be able to reconnect with their creative and their innovative development. We need to connect to our own potential and not let ourselves be or feel safe because the information is handed to us through artificial intelligence. Boredom is an opportunity to decide what to do with time. We need to swap boredom for action. It's a trigger for creativity. It encourages the child to explore the world around them, to put their 5 senses to work, to discover what to get out of what state they're in. It develops imagination and helps you create, and that's how you learn to innovate. Now we're going to see the interpersonal competences. These competences are related with other persons, and it involves teamwork, self-confidence, empathy, leadership, and coaching. So we have teamwork. It's a group of individuals who come together in an organized way to achieve a common purpose. Good team performance depends on the members and the interaction between them. Teamwork occurs when several people, they share the same goal and set out to achieve this through the appropriate interaction of all of them. Teamwork is not simply the sum of apportation individual efforts. So teamwork involves more than one person, more than one creative process, more than one system one, and more than one system two, because we need to get our brains aligned to work for a common purpose. Teamwork relates to several parts of the brain. It involves tasks such as planning and organization, prefrontal cortex, as well as social and empathy skills. The so-called empathy network includes regions such as the anterior cingulate cortex, the insula, and medial prefrontal cortex. Mirror neurons play a fundamental role in empathy between human beings. Mirror neurons are those that helps us see in the other person the things that are important or that we have set as relevant for us or for the goal that we have set. And they tend to find each other. There are different parts of the brain that that come together in social cognition. And we have the orbitofrontal cortex, where we have the reward-based behavior, the flexibility in thinking, and the emotional decision-making. We have the middle frontal gyrus, which is responsible for behavioral adaptations, because we need to be socially adapted to be able to work within a community or within a social space. The caudate, which is the emotion recognition, and the temporal pole, which holds the familiar face recognition. This is why children smile at their mothers when they are just born, but they don't smile at strangers because they have not really developed this part of familiar face recognition. Self-confidence, it's the intimate conviction that one is capable of successfully carrying out a certain task or mission, or choosing the best alternative when a problem arises, that is, making the best decision. This is the part of decision-making that is related to self-esteem, that it's related to social interaction, that is related to mirror neurons, that it's related to the limbic system. So that's why it's important to know that there's system 1 and system 2, because self-confidence is allocated in system 1 as an automatic response, but can be stimulated through system 2 with the right kind of interactions and experiences to let the child know that it can successfully achieve different tasks and different goals. So that's why challenges for entrepreneurs are so important, because it reinforces that the learning process, you only get to be an entrepreneur by being an entrepreneur. You don't read it out of a book. You have to live it. You've got to go through it. So that's why our program helps children develop stronger self-confidence and stronger self-esteem, because we help them overcome failure. We don't let them stick with failure as I am a failure. The process that you followed didn't work out as expected. What would you change in the process? And this is where we interact with creativity and innovation, because we are trying to make something different of something that we already had done and planned, and being able to adapt and have the grit, the perseverance to overcome it, to achieve the perceived goal. Empathy, it's related to ourselves and to our relationships with others. That's why it's within the interpersonal competences. And it's the ability to understand other people's emotional makeup. The word empathy means to feel inside, to feel as if we were inside the other. It's a basic interpersonal communication skill. It serves to understand in depth the message of the other and thus establish a dialogue. It's to understand that I'm feeling something, but the other person is also feeling something. And to try to understand that we have different interpretations from the world and different interpretations from the experiences that we are living. Empathy is about being able to feel without making the feelings my own in order to understand how the other person sees herself, what life means to her, what she is struggling to be, and what she needs to grow. Empathy is related to leadership because we are dealing with other humans. Leadership is the process of influencing and supporting others to work enthusiastically toward achieving common goals. It is understood as the ability to take the initiative, manage, convene, promote, encourage, motivate, and evaluate a group or team. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for higher executive functions, such as decision-making, planning, and emotional control. These are all needed to develop leadership because we need to be able to understand that there's a system one in every one of the members of the group or the team, and that we need to stimulate the system two to being able to successfully achieve the goal, what we have designed, what we are aiming to achieve, to get there. And for children, it might be easier because system one is being developed. For grown-ups, it's harder because system one is already established. So it's a higher challenge. And we teach children to always connect to system two, through all the stimuli and the activities and the challenges that we set up for them, through boredom, through creativity, through curiosity, to help them strengthen the use of system two in their daily lives, as well as their projects and their businesses. Here comes in coaching, because we don't tell children what to do or how to do it. We coach them, and we teach them how to coach others. Coaching comes from the English word to coach, which means to train. It consists of accompanying, instructing, and training a person, a coachee, or a group of them with the aim of achieving a good or developing specific skills. In the business and personal environment, coaching is the interactive and transparent process through which the coach and the coachee seek the most effective way to achieve goals. Coaching is not for those who are unwell, but for those who want to be better. Coaching is not therapy. Dare to be a coach for your team. And then we have the systemic competencies, which are the ability to find opportunities, a calculated risk-taking, and negotiation. The ability to find opportunities is a way of being open and of being connected to system two. Ideas come from observation and creativity. Opportunities come from generating ideas, and business is born from seizing opportunities. So we need to be able to relate and to interconnect what we see with what we know and what we foresee or what we set up as a goal for the future. Businesses grow with new ideas. So we need to generate ideas all the time. We need to keep balance in life. Stressing out doesn't help you generate ideas. Stay tuned, stay connected, read, learn, exchange ideas, communicate with others, rest, and dream. Never stop dreaming. And seize the opportunities. Opportunities come once in a lifetime and belong to the one who takes. Sometimes we see the opportunity and we imagine the way that we can seize them. But we don't take action as grown-ups. And this is where the magic happens with kids, because when kids see an opportunity, they take it. And they offer a proposal, they have an idea, and they dream with making this very big. And this will always be the stimulating part for system 2, because it's always looking and finding for new information and for new responses, and it makes system 1 even larger with more information. The risk. There's risk in everything. We live in a world of risk all the time. On our daily lives, whatever we do, there's always risk. But risk is the possibility of an event occurring that has an impact in the achievement of the objectives, whereby the risk is measured in terms of consequences and probability. And then we have risk management, which is the art of oscillating between loss and profit. Risk-taking is a process, and we need information. We need system 2 to use it. There is risk in any situation where we don't know exactly what will happen in the future, and this is uncertainty as well. Risk is synonymous with uncertainty. It's a difficulty in being able to predict what will happen. We must dare to take risks. That's where the opportunities lie. Risk is rewarded with the reward of success. When we can tell ourselves, yes, it was well done, I did it, I was able to, and this reinforces self-esteem and self-confidence. There's a cycle to calculated risk-taking. So we have an experience, and we need to prepare for that. We have to investigate and have facts and information, and we need to have evidence, and we have to be connected to intuition. Intuition is a very important part of the human being experience, and it's always taking place. It's a never-ending loop. But we need to be conscious that this happens all the time, because we're always having experiences. We can always reinforce, and we can always have more preparation. We can always have more facts, more evidence, more information, and we can always be connected to intuition. And through this process, through this calculated risk-taking process, we reinforce the brain interaction and the lateral communication between both hemispheres, because we need creativity from the left side, and we need from the right side, and we need the action-taking process from the left. And the reward system is a neurochemical pathway, because neurochemicals are released through gratification, through rewards, by doing things that satisfy us or that we can get external recognition. And this happens in nanoseconds in the brain, and it's the dopamine release pathways, okay? When we have the motivation because we are being rewarded, when we feel pleasure or euphoria, when our motor functioning for fine-tuning happens, we have compulsion, and we have perseverance as well. And the serotonin pathways is the neural pathways that helps us regulate our mood, our memory processing, our sleep, and our cognition. So we need to find a balance between the reward system and the loss aversion system. The amygdala is the center for fear. The amygdala is the part of the brain responsible for survival, for keeping us alive. It's the less evolved part of the brain. We find it from reptiles and amphibians up all the way through the evolution ladder. And we can say it's a system 1 response, because it's a reaction. We don't get to think how to react. We just go for it. And this is where the fight, flight, or freeze response stands. And the amygdala is the one responsible for that. And there's a term called the amygdala hijack, because the amygdala takes over the brain when we are facing loss aversion, or when we are in a high risk situation. Striatum handles prediction errors in our mind and helps us improve the prediction of things and avoid losses in the future. And the insula, where there's discussed, works in the amygdala to make people avoid certain types of behavior. This is what we learn as we experience and as we go through life. And we store in our memory different kinds of experiences and different kinds of interpretation of events through life. So we want to find a balance. What happens? Nowadays, with all the stimulation from the digital world, the reward system has been triggered all the time. So we are always searching for reward, and we are developing a very high dopamine system. So we're doped. And what we need to is to lower that a little bit and understand the loss aversion is a learning process as well that stimulates system 2 and therefore makes our brains stronger. But we need to be conscious about that and take action to understand that loss aversion can be viewed through the calculated risk-taking process. Because we foresee an experience, so we can prepare for that because we have the facts and the information and we have intuition in the amygdala. But we need to bring that into conscience and use the information to prepare for a better response, so that we can level it. The reward system is being challenged nowadays in our younger generations because they don't know how to postpone rewards. They want everything now. They don't know how to wait for the gratification process. They don't know how to hold and withhold emotions when they don't sense that they are being rewarded immediately. And this is a risk in the development of the prefrontal cortex because it's not being stimulated to generate new competencies that will help them when they grow up for a future that we can foresee a little bit of what it's holding for us grown-ups, and we can foresee a little bit of what's holding on for the young children, the new generations. We don't have a magic ball. We don't know how it's going to happen. And we know that they were born in the digital era. They are digital, like a fully digital generation. And we need to understand this interaction, but we need to help them withdraw a little bit from the digital influence into the real life influence of being bored, of having a creative process, of feeling the feeling of failure, and feeling the feeling of gratification through achieving their goals. So the reward system and the loss aversion systems, we grown-ups are the ones responsible to help children balance them a little bit. So they need information and they need different stimulation away from all the digital products that they were born into. Another one of the competencies is negotiation. Negotiation is the process of finding the best possible outcome in the acceptance of ideas, purposes, or interests so that the parties involved and the process with the feeling that they were heard, that they had the opportunity to present their arguments, and that the final product is greater than the sum of the individual contributions, so that it's a gain-gain situation. Negotiation is an ability that is developed by doing it, by communicating, by having ideas, by using the brain's ability in system to develop, to use empathy, and to use relations, and to have perseverance. Because all parties involved want to gain something from a negotiation. So we need to see how all this happens in the brain. It's a process in which both parties manage their differences through dialogue, communication, in order to reach an agreement. Both sides must win. It's a win-win situation. And a negotiation involves the negotiators, the object of the negotiation, and other variables, the environment, the objectives, as well as a risk-taking process. I move forward instead of backwards. So when we're negotiating, we need to understand as well the reward and loss balance, as well as the risk-taking calculation of in the process, because all parties involved in a negotiation are assuming some kind of risk. And we need to bring it into balance because both parent parties are looking for a reward and are trying to retrain, not have a loss. And in a commercial negotiation, it's the process by which the parties involved, when one owns or can do something that the other desires and vice versa, there's an opportunity. They communicate with each other with the aim of reaching an agreement that provides the basis for a correct understanding that helps to achieve the needs and therefore the satisfaction of both interested parties. Negotiation is an exchange-oriented interaction. There's a very clear purpose in commercial negotiation, but as human beings, we are always negotiating something. So we need to bring that into system 2 and be curious about what are we negotiating. In a negotiation, we give rational arguments and communicate thanks to the conscious brain. The brain seeks to maximize profits and reach agreements in the most efficient way with the less amount of energy consumption. So this is where the emotional brain comes in. The emotional brain can influence how we perceive others and in empathy. The primitive brain gives us the insight ourselves. The amygdala in the primitive brain takes over because if it perceives a very high risk, it will go into fight, flight, or freeze reaction, and it hijacks the rest of the brain. So being conscious and being aware and having the understanding that there's a lot of information going in our brain when we're having different kinds of stimuli, when we're interacting with other people, when we are playing with other kids, and when we're having imagination, our brain will always be first and foremost in survival. It will be always risk assessing to understand if there's something that needs to be done in an immediate way without getting reason in the way. System 1. So we need to be stimulated all the time to be using system 2, to have the risk assessment go through a rational process of thinking, of information, of going through the cycle of the experience, the cycle of the how are we prepared and having the information and being in connection with our intuition. Our brain will take over if we let it. We are in charge of our brains. If we engage consciously and purposefully with system 2. So we need to stimulate system 2. And system 2 is being stimulated always through new challenges and new experiences. So, as Peter Drucker says, whenever you see a successful business, someone once made a courageous decision. Entrepreneurship is neither a science nor an art. It's a practice. We need to be entrepreneurs and be doing different things to keep it growing. The entrepreneur always seeks change, responds to it, and uses it as an opportunity.